So we're going to get started, and welcome to week 2 of engineering management. So today's lecture is actually lecture 1 on chapter 1 of a book on information systems and innovations. So the concept of today is on innovation and managing innovation. So as the title would say, managing in the digital world, which is essentially the world we're living in today. So maybe about 10 years ago, we could have said, oh yeah, managing the digital world, different than managing in the traditional world. And if you think about it, is it really? Because now everything's digital. There's no traditional world anymore. There actually is. I mean, you can find the traditional world out there. But for the most part, when we talk about management in general, we are actually talking about the digital world or electronics. So when you talk about engineering management, I like this actually, this little quote here from Steve Jobs in the beginning of this lecture. And this is of the MISI, Managing Information Systems and Innovation. So if you're following along on the lectures, it is the one that is of the Managing Innovation lectures. It's this series here, which is the second series. Last week, if you remember, I did the first one, Technology Management one. So we covered lecture 1 of that one, and then we're going to cover lecture 1 of this series. There's 2 series that run simultaneously. This is in lieu of a textbook, actually, because there is no textbook, as I mentioned earlier, because there is no textbook. There's no textbook that's covering this topic. So instead, I could have you buy 5 books, or I could just throw at you like dozens of lectures, and you can read through the lectures or just listen to me talk, and that's probably enough. And today we're going to go over the first assignment as well, so you'll have something to work on. Because most people, when they first start out, they're all gung-ho and they want to work on assignments and get stuff done because you want to get an A in the course and everything, you're so motivated. But I'll wait because we're still missing a few people, so I'll wait a little bit before I go over that first assignment. I'll do it at the end. And I opened it up so I would remember, actually. So anyway, so let's get on with the lecture. And today's topic, and what I try to do is come up with a different topic for each day. So today's all about engineering. What is an engineering management? What's the job? Managing in the digital world. What is it we're talking about? Why are you studying this kind of thing in terms of a skill set? And isn't it really just giving the customer what they want? Which is kind of interesting because this quote makes a lot of sense. So we'd built a computer they'd be happy with for a year after we spoke with them. Not something they'd want now, which is actually kind of true. In fact, the iPhone, if you think about that, we're not going to want that in 5 years either. We're going to have a better one out, actually. Now we don't want one in black and white, we want one in colors. But long story short, we are, well, that sounds like me. We're going to want, all right, can you turn me down a little bit? Oh, okay, thank you. I hear myself talking in the background. All right, well, at least I know you found my website, which is very good. All right, so the learning objectives of today. Looking at explaining how, and I'm going to talk about information systems in a bit here. Contrasting data, technology, people, organizations, and components. Looking at the digital firm as a concept. Information systems, which is the core to it. And how engineering managers work with this, for the most part. And also describing the jobs and career opportunities in information systems fields. I'm not going to get too far into that. It's kind of a little, actually every year, well, let's just say every 6 months, this information is outdated. So it would make no sense for me to cover that information in a lot of detail because, by the time you graduate, it's going to be something totally different, actually, really, at the rate that technology grows. And then looking at and describing the dual nature of information systems and success and failures in modern organizations. So looking at this top here and explaining the concept. Engineering managers are information workers. You're a knowledge worker. Actually, most people are knowledge workers these days. You have to be. If you're not working in digital technology and you're not working in mainstream, you're doing something that's really old and outdated for the most part. That's not very electronic or not very computerized for the most part. So knowledge worker is really the modern worker, and it was a term coined back in 1959, actually. It's a very old term. So it's an individual who is relatively well educated and who creates, modifies, and synthesizes knowledge as a fundamental part of your job. So if you're an engineering manager and you are working in operations, as an example, you're training or you're lining up trainers to train your managers or your developers or your engineers. to perform some sort of task or to know some sort of technology, or you're managing the development that they're doing of this technology, or you're probably actually participating in the development, depending upon how hands-on you are. Long story short, there's a lot of communication, there's a lot of knowledge exchange, there's a lot of facilitation that goes on with that. And so in terms of what you're doing is you're using your education not to build something, or not to perform a task. You're using it to know the knowledge, and you're taking the knowledge and you're making it available to other people, and you're taking the knowledge as part of your job, actually. And that's really your job, is to be knowledgeable. So someone can come up to you, is that me again? And say, hey, where our sales are having problems with this technology because the wheel is too hard for people to navigate. So you're taking your knowledge as a knowledge worker and you're going, well, let's change the wheel. That's a no-brainer, but how should we change it? Well, you're going to do market research, or you're going to rely upon feedback, or you're going to do something innovative to kind of figure out, well, what is it we have to do? And sometimes it's a matter of changing a color, changing a position, a size of something, which is actually kind of interesting when you look into the user interface and user experience. And that's something you work a lot with these days, actually, because that's what most products are about these days. So we have this thing called a knowledge society that goes along with it, and it's basically it's the new world. It's this society I've been talking about from the beginning of this lecture when I said everything's digital now. There's no such thing. I mean, we're in a knowledge society. Everybody's knowledgeable. In fact, even as a consumer, you have to be knowledgeable. If you don't know what you're buying, you don't know what you're doing. So if anything, life is harder now than it used to be because you have the internet, which means there's no excuses. You do your own price comparison. You do your own product shopping. If, for example, if you care, that is. For example, you're going to buy a digital camera. You want the best megapixels, or you want the best speed, or the most amount of memory capacity, or the longest lasting, or one that's better in light or underwater, or all these other considerations. You can't walk into a store and ask for this. Actually, you can. They'll get laughed at for the most part, or you'll get sold a product that doesn't meet any of these specifications. So instead, as a knowledge worker in a knowledge society, you got to go online, figure out the Canon or the Epson or whatever. I don't know camera brands. The Sony, actually Sonys are pretty good. I bought a Sony. Anyway, long story short, you pick out the model you want with the specs that you want. You do your own shopping. You do your own knowledge, and you have to do this with a car, with a camera, with a computer. If you don't really know what you're getting for the most part, and then you're putting your whole entire life, or your spending, or your products and services in the hands of somebody else, which a lot of people are comfortable with, actually. But it means why you're going to get a crappy car, or you're going to get a crappy computer, or you're going to get a crappy camera that doesn't work for you for the most part, and then you end up buying another camera. Anyway, so it's a toss-up which one's better. A lot of people don't want to spend the time. They'll just buy whatever they see, and then, okay, that's good. That works for me. And then next week they'll buy another one. So it depends on how much money you have, I guess, and how much you want to do this. But the knowledge society is what I've been describing in terms of the behaviors of it. And the information is now part of, or it is as important as land, labor, and capital resources. So it's the knowledge of it. So the information system is what's giving us the knowledge. So if you were to take an information systems course on day one, they teach you the formulas for creating knowledge. So we have data plus data, and if I had a board, I'd write data plus data is equal to information. Information plus information, or more data, you can put more, is equal to knowledge. Knowledge plus more knowledge, or information, or more data, is equal to wisdom. So it's the knowledge hierarchy. Wisdom's on the top. Underneath it you have knowledge. Underneath it you have information. Underneath that you have data. There's a hierarchy. Tons of data out there. Not too much wisdom out there. So wisdom's at the highest peak. And then there's a lot of behavioral scientists and a lot of information systems authors, actually, that turn this into an entire cycle. So it actually gives you your employment cycle, your human development cycle, your motivation cycles. what I mean by that is, like, depending upon what level you are in the hierarchy, you show certain characteristics in your job satisfaction, and you show certain characteristics in terms of the amount of knowledge you have and the amount of success factor, depending upon it. So even like Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a good example of that as well. You get to a certain point where you need the base, but then you get higher levels of satisfaction the higher you go up the hierarchy. So behavioral scientists and management science has had a field day with these pyramids for years. Well, engineering management follows the same philosophy, actually. And an engineering manager needs to be aware of the hierarchy so that you can build programs and systems and basically have knowledge exchange that's appropriate for each one of the levels. So it's not to say that some people don't need to know information, but they don't need to know information. So it's like need to know basis where you're going to overwhelm a particular management level if you give them too much or if you don't give them enough, kind of thing. So anyway, we could get into that, but I'm not going to. But this is where kind of the philosophy comes from. But here we have the items and the value of the knowledge society, where we have capital, land, labor. Well, if we don't have that information, we don't have that knowledge, we're missing a piece of the puzzle. So characteristics of this digital world, as we look at it, and can't avoid the concept of globalization. So it doesn't really matter where you're coming from, and you guys are all international students. That's great. You study engineering management here, you study business here, you take it home. It's the same thing. The world is connected these days. So economies work differently. You know that probably already. Societies work differently. Economies work differently. Jobs work differently depending upon where you are globally. However, big picture, we're all going for the same goal. Make lots of money. I don't know. Do good for the environment. I don't know. Depends on the goal of the company. Long story short, the trend is for everybody to all be working together. So there is no divide. There's no separation. Everybody does work together. So technically you could, in fact, I've done that here in the United States, work for companies that are outside of the United States. So that's no problem. Just the same way as you can be outside the United States, work for companies inside the United States. So you can also own a company outside of the United States or inside the United States, or figure out you're going to get your products and services. In fact, a lot of manufacturing, nothing's built in the U.S. these days. Everything's built out of state. In fact, a lot of your development's done out of state too, or excuse me, out of the United States as well, out of the country. So, it's kind of a reality. And I'll go through the insourcing, outsourcing, and self-sourcing models in a few minutes, but it kind of lends itself into those different types of models for doing business. So as an engineering manager, you also have to be familiar with the different business models, globalization as a concept. So it's the integration of the economies through the world, enabled by technology. Technology helps it. Technology is an extreme motivating factor for growing this forward, actually. And it manifests itself through the change in the economy, cultures, and technology. Actually, that's the most unique part of it, is the change in the cultures, actually, which is kind of interesting. There's certain things that other countries do better than other countries, and I can't really say one country is more efficient or better than another one without kind of saying, well, at what or with what? What are they good at versus that country over there? And the funny thing is if the countries just focused on their strengths and let themselves be global, I think the world would actually grow faster. So many people are trying to for example, why do we even bother? We should not even bother doing manufacturing in the United States. Why do we care if something is made in America? Everybody who's listening to this on YouTube is going to be arguing with me. What are you, not American? That's not the point. I am American, but the point is we're terrible at it. We just suck completely at the entire concept. We have been for years. American products are more expensive if they're made in America because we just don't do it right. But other countries do it much better than us, and it's cheaper, and they have the land and the facilities and the technology. So, which is why people have been arguing for years, why are we outsourcing this? Why is it going out? Why is it all over there? And the reality of it all is that, the true American would argue and say, oh, that's really bad for America because we're letting somebody else profit from our mistakes or our inabilities. And I'm thinking, yeah, but let's just do what we're good at, which I don't really know what we're good at, but we're good at stuff. the point I'm trying to make is that if we just got rid of the negative, if I'm not a good basketball player, I'm not going to play basketball. I'm not going to spend I'm a terrible basketball player. I'm really short, actually. I'm not going to play basketball. I'm better at golf, actually. And if I'm going to spend my time, I'm going to learn golf. I'm going to take golf lessons versus basketball lessons. Well, that's what the U.S. should do. They should just stop trying, which is kind of bad. And I know a lot of people would argue with me on that one, disagree and debate with me forever on that one. But we're not a self-contained. If we were a self-contained island of our own and we had to do everything ourselves, yeah, we probably should improve that process. But we're not. If you think globally, there's no need for us to ever have to manufacture another product ever again in the U.S. There's no problem with taking it elsewhere because that's what they're good at. That's what, so anyway. And well, let's just do what we're good at, which, I don't know, that's debatable. Okay, so I am an American, and I am proud to be an American. Let me just preface that statement. However, I'm also realistic, and come on, Anyway, I could complain about teachers' salaries forever. Actually, America doesn't pride itself on education, which is kind of odd. Other places, it's like all about education. I love the Asian countries, and it's all about education. The United States, the workers who actually work in education make less than people working at Jack in the Box. I mean, it's not valued. It's terrible. Anyway, long story short, I'm not complaining either. So, now let me get back to the lecture here. We're not good at education. Ask any teacher, you could get another job doing half the amount of work elsewhere and get paid more. So people who get into education don't get into education for the money, which actually makes better educators if you think about it. So maybe that's their philosophy. I don't know, but grade schools, kindergartens, this is the beginning of the school year, right? So you watch all the news, you read all the articles, like, oh, there's no budget for magic markers and for paste and for crayons in kindergartens these days. I'm thinking, well, the parents have to bring their own. I'm thinking, wow, what do we care about that? Well, but we're so worried about being able to manufacture a product here, though. But we can't provide erasers and crayons and stuff like that to kindergartners. It's just kind of stupid. All right, economic changes. So increase in international trade of goods and services, buying goods and services from other markets outside. Cultural changes. I'm not going to really bring up too much cultural changes, but, the internet, it's actually, believe it or not, the internet culturally has become kind of a common ground for a lot of countries, actually. A lot of countries spend about an equal amount on the internet. In fact, the U.S. was all about TV for the longest time. And then U.S. TV went elsewhere, and then everybody else is about TV now. And Hollywood and all the, but other countries, they have their Hollywoods as well. So long story short, there are cultural differences with communication and with a lot of convergence. There's some extreme lines and there's some major differences, but for the most part, there's more commonalities than there ever used to be. Actually, the more globalization we are, and I'm thinking about business culture actually at this point, and I'm thinking about how we do business, and if you talk about business culture, you're looking at bribery, you're looking at practices. That in the U.S., you say bribery, people immediately think that's a negative word. It actually is not a negative word elsewhere. Bribery is a common business practice. You pay me, I do something for you. You don't pay me, I'm not doing that for you. Not coming across the border. But it's a business way of doing business. Just because we don't see it as a positive here. Actually, there's more bribery probably in the U.S. than there is elsewhere. It's just not spoken, not talked about. But anyway, technology changes as we're thinking about that. I always laugh, at the fact that, Japan, they had smaller cell phones for the longest time than we had in the U.S. It wasn't until a good 5 years that we actually had smaller cell phones in the U.S., which was actually kind of ironic. But Japan, the Japanese are really good at the cell phones. The cell phones are really good technology over there. But technological changes and the availability of low-cost computing platforms and communication technologies not only bridge the gap between and create the global market where you can communicate with somebody either voice or through data, but the technologies themselves, as they're applied in the different markets, also encourage the globalization itself. So information systems as a definition, which is what we're talking about actually. We're creating information systems to share information and to create information, not only in a globalized market, but also in a local domestic one as well, wherever that may happen to be. But by definition, we have 5 key factors or elements that go into it. So if you've never heard the word information systems before, this is for you. It's not only the data, but the data is a big part of it. We're looking at the software, the hardware, the people, the telecommunication network. So it's information systems are not information technology. Most people go ITIS or IS&T or MIS or IT or MIT, depending upon what you're looking at. And it's like those are like all different acronyms describing all different scenarios. So the systems, the information systems are defined here. Information technology is just the technology. There's no data, there's no people, there's no software, hardware, telecommunication net. Well, actually there is, but it's focused on the technology management part of it. You could get a degree in technology management. It's a concentration in this, well, same as engineering management, but I don't think we have a concentration at this school, but other schools have majors in technology management. And if that's the case, you're studying IT and technology as it's related to management and information systems as well. So, point to take away is that it's more than just the data. In fact, all of these acronyms, it's more than just the data. So the data is the root of the system, though. It's the purpose of the information system. Data is useless without the meaning applied to it. So if I went and I kept everybody's student ID from this course, that'd be creating a lot of raw data. I get like a whole list of student IDs. What good would that be? Nothing. If I added some meaning to that you were here at a certain time on a certain day, then I can provide some sort of an attendance tracking or something. Give it meaning. Then it turns into information. The information is not your student ID. It's how many class meetings have you attended? How many have you not attended? That's the information that comes out of it. So when we build systems and we manage processes and we put together work, and we have work product, it really doesn't matter if we have cartons or crates full of sales receipts. Doesn't really matter. Or better yet, let's put them on a computer. Keep track of every sale we've ever made for the last 10 years. Doesn't really matter. What's that going to give us? Nothing. So if we apply some meaning to it, as an example, what's the average price they paid for a particular product? Or how many products did one person buy of this type and that type and that type? Or, what seasonal pattern? When did the sales actually happen? Then we have more information that we can actually use out of it. So the funny thing is a lot of people just gather the data. And the data is just the raw, unformatted information, the facts. But they never turn it into information. If you don't turn it into information, it's just a waste, which is actually kind of interesting. And then we have the knowledge, which is the procedures used to manipulate the data, and the wisdom, which is the accumulated knowledge. So if you have the knowledge, you have the wisdom, going back to that first slide set with Steve Jobs and that iPhone sitting there, you're going to know when, hopefully, to introduce a new product. You're going to know when to do something, why to do it, because you've read the economic patterns, you've read the buying patterns, you're familiar with the consumer, which means you have knowledge about the consumer. And if you have knowledge about the consumer, then you can build a better product for the consumer, essentially. The concept works outside of consumerism. It works outside of that. It works in everything, actually. In terms of a knowledge worker, your goal as a knowledge worker is to take the data, turn it into information, and then build knowledge out of it. And here's a little example here. We have the data. Might be, might just be a number. And then the information says, well, it's a social security number. And then the knowledge says, well, that's a social security number for John Doe. And then the wisdom might be, well, what can we get from the social security number for John Doe? Oh, we can get the student records, we can get employment records, medical records, all that stuff. So, which is actually kind of funny because the whole medical industry, think about. And I looked at these records over here. I'm like, yeah, that's one way we're doing a lot of this knowledge management these days. Medical industry, not your medical records aren't public yet. You don't want them to be public anyway. You don't want them ever to be public. Are they shared? Not quite. But if we could share it, then we could have much better health insurance policies in the U.S. actually, because then we could base your pay. Okay, so they've come. The knowledge that's been gained so far. Now this is very controversial, so take this with a grain of salt. I'm going to go now off of a non-politically correct tangent one more time here. But I'm not going to differentiate against different cultures. Instead, I'm going to talk about the U.S. actually. So there was a study done in the U.S. for preventative medicine, preventative health care, which is part of what came into the Obama initiative. So I'm not going to get political. I'm not going to talk about whether that's good or bad or anything like that. However, they took a dental and medical records. They started with the dental and they moved on to medical. And it's a known fact for dental records. Those people who get their teeth cleaned at least once a year have better teeth overall. So they did a study. It's a no-brainer study. Are you going to get the cavity fixed before it turns into a root canal? Are you going to take care of your teeth? Long story short, the people that took better care of their teeth had fewer bills in the future. And they broke that down into medical, and they went, okay, yeah, so I'm thinking if my medical records were available, because I'm a hypochondriac, paranoid person, if I have oh, there's that red mark, I'm going to go to doctors. I have everything done. I do all the preventative, stuff. I shouldn't be paying as much as someone who doesn't do all that stuff. That's what I'm thinking. Because I'm not going to break down as much, theoretically, if you could do that. And that's the controversial side, because then you have people that spend their entire life getting everything possibly done to them, and then they end up with this weird thing that came out of nowhere that they had, where'd that come from? But the likelihood that your chances, I'm talking strictly probability and statistics, your chances go down. The likelihood of you having a serious problem that's going to be costly, is going to go down if you take the preventative steps like it does in dental. Maybe dental is an easier scenario to talk about. If you never brush your teeth, you never get your teeth cleaned in your entire life, you're going to have bad teeth. That's a given. So those people, why do they pay the same thing as those people that do take care? So long story short, that's if we looked at the medical records, we looked at the dental records, employment records. Employers do this all the time. They look at how long have you been at a company? What have you done at the company? They'll even call for a reference. And does this employee show up to work? Does this employee, they look at everything because it lowers their odds of you being a flake, of you not knowing what you're doing, of you leaving the company quickly, which actually is a better thing now, because now they're looking at, how long have you been at the company? 25 years. Oh, we don't want you. You don't know anything. You've been at that company for 25 years. You're a lifer. And they call them a lifer. It means you don't learn anything, you don't progress, you just stagnate in your career completely, which is kind of weird because it's like the opposite. But these are all examples of information that's gathered from data, and the information is used to set policies and procedures and rules for a business. So if we're an engineering company and we're producing a product and we're manufacturing it, we take a look at the success rate of manufacturing plants given certain product specs. Yeah, this overseas company is really good at toy making, but how good are they with metal fabrications or something? Long story short, we can profile it. Then we can figure out whether or not we're going to spend our money there. If we're not going to spend there, we might pick a better choice. So, and then insurance companies, if that were ever to become a reality, could base it on how often do they go on vacation? Actually, that's what Kaiser does. It says the more, believe it or not, the more time people take off of work, the more vacations, the fewer dollars they spend in healthcare later down the road. So vacations are good, they say. So, anyway, that's what Kaiser says. Anyway. In terms of components of information technology, so remember a few minutes ago I went over information systems and those components, which was data and people and technology and networks. So let's talk about information technology, IT, for a moment, the components of the information systems that go into that. Well, that's technology and information technology, and then computer-based information technology for the most part these days, because everything's on a computer. Which is actually kind of funny because we're transforming as we speak from computer to tablet to mobile to another word that's going to come out. So can you really, I mean, the word smartphone as a classic example is very old and outdated because every phone's a smartphone. In fact, you can't find it's very hard to find a non-smartphone out there. Just try looking for one. Like one phone from one manufacturer, maybe, that's not smart. Not smart means it doesn't have the internet on it, just does the telephone. And you think about it, it's a cell phone. Couldn't you just buy a cell phone? Nope. Long story short, so you're going to call it a smartphone forever? Nope. Not being used anymore either. So it's just a phone. So now we have a tablet. And then we put a generic word on it, called it an iPhone, right? Or a Google or an Android or something. So we're going into a new era of definitions. So we're not carrying around PCs anymore. Some of us have PCs. I have a PC, personal computer. But really, is it a hybrid tablet / computer? Actually, yours looks like it is. Or is it a notebook computer? So I'm waiting for the words to come out to describe the technology. And then the innovators are the ones who are going to come up with these words. So it's the people that are selling the stuff as well as servicing it and coming up and developing the innovative technology that are coming up with the ways of describing it as well. So relationships between computer-based information systems and technology in general fall into this category. And then any machine that can supplement or replace human manual work is technology. Heating systems, surgical lasers, your smartphone actually is replacing, which is actually kind of funny because we're not calling it artificial intelligence. And for years, computer science and software engineering people, they say, oh, artificial intelligence, that's a bunch of hocus pocus, that's a bunch of garbage, don't listen to those AI people, that's futuristic, that's robots and stuff. There's more AI used in technology these days than there ever has been in the history of computing. And then categorize or put in big data or put in data mining into those categories. And you're like, oh, that's what the entire industry is about. So you guys are all knowledge workers working with artificial intelligence for the most part. By technical terms or old terms. But that's your de facto standard job these days because there's no job outside of AI. You guys are all working in AI. And the internet is all about intelligent agents and agent theory. All artificial intelligence. So anyway, and the biggest thing right now is data mining, which is a subcategory. It's a hybrid of artificial intelligence as well as statistical analysis and some other fields that go into that. So, and if you're an engineering manager, and you probably want to take a data mining course or an artificial intelligence course, actually, because then you'll understand some of the technologies that are going into it. You don't actually have to design the technologies, but being familiar with the terms, like what an agent is, perceiving agents and receptors and all of the different components of the theory, then you can design something that will work to solve a problem. Because engineering managers are problem solvers. So you fix problems by applying technology or innovation or systems to it to say, well, our sales are down or our manufacturing isn't working correctly or we want to do this. How do we do it? Well, here's some tools. You pull out of your bag all your tools that you're going to use to make this happen, hopefully. And long story short, eventually it happens, hopefully. Anyway, so the components for information technology, types of technology that's controlled by users or information, manufacturing, robotics, all fall into this category as well. And in terms of using computers, providing useful data to people, specific software used for analyzing data in people, things of that nature. We don't have as many consumer level products for this. It's mostly service oriented. As an example, you go to barnesandnoble.com and you're searching on a book. Well, it can data mine through the rest of everybody else who's also searched on that book to see, well, what else did they search on? And then populate the ads or populate the content that comes up based on everybody else's search. Problem is, if you don't follow the normal pattern, you're not going to see what, the abnormal or the kind of infrequently used topics are. But for the most part, if you've ever wondered why something shows up, it's because, oh, this book goes with that book. Oh, how do we know that? The consumers told us. Because everybody else who searched on this book also searched on that book. They don't have a database that comes up. Instead, they have a robot, a little spy that goes in there and looks at it. What are you searching on? What else have you searched on? Okay. Let's give you this. And they're intelligent agents, little spy bots that look to see what you bought. What are you searching on? That's technology, actually. It's an algorithm, but it's partly data mining and partly it's partly spyware for the most part, but it's legal spyware. So, actually, spyware is not bad. It's not bad for consumer marketing, so, which is actually kind of interesting because now we have so much spyware going on with social media. We have connections between people and places that you've been, and most people sitting here going, what do you mean? Yeah, it's personal to you. You've marked it private, but no, it's nothing on the internet. It's private, So if we can data mine everyone's personal life through social media, you get on there, post all your stuff, put all your stuff online. Get you out there, then we can figure out, well, what percentage of these people like to travel, and where do they travel to, and what age group are they in, and what kind of products do you think we might be able to sell them? So there's social media marketing, there's social media data mining, social media, information systems that are built on social media to tell you, well, this ethnic group, they know these people, they communicate at this time of day. All the information, it's amazing what kind of information you can get out of that, actually. So it's very important to learn the consumer. So why do you want to do that? Because we want to build a better product for the consumer. We want to sell the consumer. But in the area of social media, we also have marketing. It's really, marketing companies and marketing strategies through social media. Even ITU uses social media for marketing. We have a Facebook account, and I don't know what else we have, but anyway, there's some pros and cons to that technique. We also have people as part of the system, builders and managers of information systems, career opportunities. Well, these are outdated, actually. So I'm not going to spend too much time on career opportunities. But let's take a look at the best jobs for the next decade. If you did a search right now, it's going to be very similar to this. I'll tell you, this is about 1.5 years old. If you go online and search the top 10, I did this the other day actually, just to confirm it, and because I was kind of curious. Software engineer, actually it says computer programmer right now. Computer programmer, software engineer, information systems, information technology, still the highest career level in the United States according to the statistical range. So salaries, that's going to all be different. That's going to be totally different. I don't know if psychologist is still down here. Human resource manager, I don't know if I'd put that in there anymore either. But so careers with salaries in the IS field, don't even look at that. Let's not look at that. So the evolution of the CIO, it's been around for a while. We have the COO, the CIO, more than the CEO, CTO, Chief Technology Officer. So we have new higher level executives, the information officer. Only came around in the 1980s, actually, not too long ago. 1990s, we have CIO, stands for career is over. Well, you can only have one and you can't go anywhere from there. And no one's going to hire a CIO that was working at a company already. So CIOs don't get jobs after they get their initial CIO. They got to go downward. Your career's over, you go downward, down the hierarchy. So do you really want to be a CIO? Just don't tell anyone you were a CIO before. If you want to do it again. Tighten budgets as well, so you're not going to get paid as much. Let's see. I'm not going to go through the different roles here. Actually, let me stop on the slide just for 1 second, though, because this really talks about What makes information systems personnel valuable? Well, this also applies towards engineering management, because engineering management is information systems, information technology, technology management, and engineering and business, all mixed into one. So what makes them valuable? All those I just spotted off. You have tons of lists. So in the area of information system as it applies, technical competency, but it doesn't really matter actually. So a lot of business people study engineering management. They pick up more technology management, or more technology exposure, but you're never going to do hands-on technology anything. So even if you're an engineer, have an engineering background, have an EE double major or whatever, I don't know, EE major as an undergrad, computer science major, you'll never touch a computer. You'll never program or write a line of code if you don't want to, which is interesting. So that group focuses on the business components instead of the technology components, because they already have that. So, which is actually kind of interesting, because if you're in the engineering management program, it's just like half the classes on the engineering side, half the classes on the business side, and you get to pick which ones you want, and they all come together and they all work together, because you're really coming up with a kind of a customized, kind of a degree that's kind of tailored towards your interests, which is different. It's more flexible than other majors, but it's different as well, because there's no two engineering managers who have the same job. It depends on the industry, the level of management, and the type of need that the company has. If they need a technology person, they're going to hire somebody with a technology background. If they need a business person, which is actually more often, which is more common to have a business need. Because engineers are really great at engineering technology, but they make terrible business analysts, terrible business people. So usually you're looking for a business person. But anyway, technology competency is kind of an important issue for that. Business competency as well. So, and systems competency. I'd say systems competency more than technical competency, depending upon the field. If you're building bridges, you probably want to be a civil engineer. You probably want to have a civil engineering background. If you're doing operations or manufacturing, management, mechanical, anything mechanical, in terms of, you're going to want to have a background related to that. So it depends on your interest and what kind of area you're going to want to work in. It's going to depend on what kind of skill set you're going to be good for it. So, in terms of the context of IS, many different types of systems used in organizations, many different types of roles and jobs. We can get into transaction processing from a lower level, into decision support, into intelligent systems, and so on as we go up to hierarchy. So, systems are used to cleanly organize, and sometimes we have boundaries between the systems, and then sometimes we have fading boundaries where one system integrates into another one. So, the idea these days is to have one global centralized enterprise. So the word enterprise is used a lot in terms of this subject area, because it's no longer just the company and the company's systems. It's how the company's systems are working with their suppliers and their customers and their partners, business partners. And if you put the partners, the suppliers, everybody all together, you've got more of an enterprise than you do a company. So that word actually describes a lot more in terms of what's going on with that. So I'm not going to go through the early history, rise and fall of end user development, modern information systems organizations. So this is actually kind of an old picture. That computer looks so old. You can see that picture. I don't think we have those anymore. That's the IBM PC, end user development. We still have keyboards like that out, I think. I've seen them in actually it's funny because kids today, they've never seen that before. All they see are notebooks, or they see the modern day monitors and stuff. They don't see this whole thing. So maybe 20 years from now you go to a tech museum and go, look at that, I had one of those. Depending upon how old you are. So dual nature of IS, it can make or break you. Actually, the companies that don't invest in IS end up not coming in as profitable or running as efficiently. For example, even low-tech companies, flower shops, bakeries, even package handling is an example. Just think about having a package delivered before we had the electronic scanning of signatures, before we had the internet to actually track a package, stuff like that. More costly. They came in, big trucks would come in at the fulfillment center overnight. People would work all night counting to see what was still in the truck, what got delivered, what didn't get delivered. So you think about the concept, well, now we have technology that does it for us. We don't have to hire those people. So, which goes back to that kind of another American thing where technology is taking over jobs and replacing us. And I'm thinking, if your job is that easy that technology can replace you, you're in the wrong career. Switch careers. So, and then the argument to that is, well, it's too late in my career to switch careers. And I'm thinking, if you think it's too late in your career to switch careers, then perhaps it's time for you to retire. Because, you're never too old to switch careers, actually. So, I don't know. FedEx is a good example of success with this. Also, information system is used for competitive advantage. So technology systems, information technology is used to stay afloat, to compete. If you're a grocery store, you got to have barcode scanning. If you're a company, a retail store, you have to have electronic inventory tracking and inventory control, as well as sales, everything captured electronically for your sales and your inventory. Otherwise, is that Siri? Anyway, otherwise it's hard to manage the business. It's almost impossible. But you also need it for competitive advantage, which is actually kind of interesting because if everybody's using the same system, then there's no competitive advantage. Everyone's using the same system. We're all doing everything the same way. So as an example, what the FedEx actually did in the beginning with their strategic information systems, they were one of the first to actually use electronic signature and electronic packaging and the barcode on their labels and stuff like that to automate something. Well, then it gives them a step ahead, gives them an advantage. So, and most people are thinking, well, what's going on? Well, when you get hired on, you have to think about competitive advantage, because if you're not going to be with the company for too long because they want someone who's more innovative. 9 times out of 10, they're looking for an innovation manager who's looking at competitive advantages. How can we do something better? Not how can we just get it done? Because we're past, at the level of an engineering manager, you're past getting it done. It's how do you do it better at this point? How do you make this run more profitably or more efficiently or something? I use profits a lot as a marking point. It's the most thing people care about in terms of business. So. Competitive advantages. Okay, so why it matters? Well, it does matter. It matters in technology and information systems matter for different objectives and different goals of the organization. It allows them to do more. So you can read through this stuff here in terms of why it matters and stuff like that. So. And then at the end of these lectures, actually, and this is why I don't actually go through it all, I'll leave you some of this stuff to read through. And this is lecture number 1 of the Management of Information Systems Innovations. So the opening case study of Apple Computer and the first iPhone that came out, and the tight integration with iTunes and the Apple Store that actually came out. Do you realize that the iPhone, well, I shouldn't say the iPhone, the first iPod came out before iTunes, and then iTunes was a program to make the iPod more functional because we couldn't do anything with it. So they sort of came out simultaneously, but the hardware beat it to the market a little bit faster. And then they focused as a company so much on iTunes to make it, a usable product, because that's what you needed, and it was only supported on the Apple computer. So then they branched it out. Let's make it available on Windows, okay, and let's build it up and stuff. Now, Apple as a company, they're not a hardware company anymore. They're a software company. They make more money through their content delivery system, iTunes, than anything else. That's the most profitable for them. If you think about the concept, what's the expense? No expense. So even if they sold a song for $1 and they sold it to 1 million people and they did this every 5 minutes, no overhead, no expense, it's cheap, it's profitable. So anyway, long story short, as a company, they're not really a hardware company anymore, although they make nice computers and stuff. They're a content provider. They provide content. And you think about the concepts, well, where did content come from? Well, before information systems and information technology, there was no such thing as content. When you think about it. So, I believe it is time for a break for the attendance. Let me pause this. All right, let's finish this up. Then I want to go over the assignment as well, the first assignment. So we're almost done for today. We just need to wrap this up a little bit here. So anyway, so long story short, Apple came up with a brand new concept with that Apple Store and with the online content. Actually, not the Apple Store, but with iTunes, and then the Apple Store came after that in the App Store. So then Google actually followed in with that second with the Market, and now with Google Play and all the other services. So the concept of there being an online store, which opened up mobile commerce for the most part. Now Windows 8 has it with Windows Store, so we have Apple Store, Windows Store, Google Play, Market. So that store concept was a very innovative idea that actually just kind of fell in their laps when they figured out, well, we need some way of buying stuff on this device. We need some way of populating the content on this device. So that was very kind of a smart thing, and it just they just kind of stumbled upon it. The hard part is not stumbling on it and actually predicting it and figuring out, well, what is this innovation going to be, and then coming up with your own. Because that's where most of the money is these days, is developing those innovations. So in terms of the company survival, it might depend upon those employees who fail over those other ones who try new ideas. Trying new ideas is pretty much the key thing. They had many different failures. Mac TV, well, we have Apple TV. Apple TV is not really a failure. I wouldn't call it a failure. It's a $99 product. The first ones that came out were $199 or $299. The first generations, slightly different concept completely. If you're familiar with the smart TVs, that's actually kind of a product that's going to go away. Most people buy them. Actually, they're mostly on sale now. If you buy a new TV, you'll see smart TV. Well, pretty soon all TVs will be smart, just like all DVDs and Blu-ray players are smart now, which means they have the internet on them. Smart means they're connected to the internet. No need to buy a smart TV, though, because you can buy an Apple TV, or you can buy a Roku, or you can buy one of these other Sony products, actually. That give you, not DVR, they give you online streaming and internet capabilities on the device. So there's no need to have a computer hooked up to it anymore. So anyway, with the next kind of thing, and Sony's actually the one that did this with the Chromecast and some of the other ones, is the streaming. So why in the world do I want another device to stream onto my electronic device like my TV or my computer when I could just take my computer that I already have, stream that? So you had this little USB thing, you just plug it into the TV and you stream it from your computer. Well, take that another step, stream it from your phone, stream it from anything, your watch or whatever you have. So long story short, the innovation of that is kind of unique, and it's definitely the area of growth these days. So it'd be interesting. Those smart TVs are pretty cheap anyway right now, because right now the smart factor is no such. We don't care if it's smart. We have all these other products on the market that make it smarter. So we're not. And then plus, if you buy a TV that has internet on it, that already has the smart capability of it, if you're a techie person, you're not going to be happy with that a year from now, because you're stuck. Can't upgrade the internet speed. Can't do anything with it. If you have all the separate components that work with it, you have more flexibility. Now when 802.11q comes into place, we can make it faster instead of being stuck with it. Which is actually kind of the thing with computers. How long do you keep a computer? Well, how long is it going to be fast? And then when it starts slowing down, you upgrade it by a new computer. So bionic contact lenses that you can keep in your eyes, or implants, another area of technology growth in the last several years. For blind and partially blind people, for being developed, problems you have to solve in terms of the technology and the capabilities. So, and then we have the two Steves. We have Jobs and Wozniak in terms of their start out, the beginning of it all. So this was pretty much the start, and we haven't gotten an end yet. In fact, we have new starts every day, every year. Worldwide internet usage keeps going up. So in 2008, 17% of active internet users were located in the United States. That's a pretty small amount, 17%. from the U.S. So it might make you think that North America is 74% of the population. So that's a little bit higher. Africa, 5.3% of the population. So we have different behaviors. Actually, believe it or not, there are areas of the U.S. that don't have landline service and don't have internet connectivity. Mostly in the Midwest. But you can actually be in the U.S. and you can have not running water either. Just go to an Amish territory. But long story short, not everybody in the U.S. has the internet, which is kind of surprising. You're in California, so you're in a heavily populated technology area. So are other areas of the United States. But there are some areas where they don't even have a telephone, and no smartphones, no tablets, no internet connectivity, no computers, which is amazing. Like the entire state is like that. They don't have anything. It's like, how in the world can that exist today? You can. So you're just in a bubble out here, actually. Online rights, not always universal. Rights protection in the year 2000, year 2010 and year 2009, actually. And you think about it, this is year 2013. This is only a couple years ago. Did we not have digital rights protection from a government perspective? So we have all the data protection acts that came out in the beginning of 2005, 2006-ish. And then now we have more rights enacted. Well, probably this year, hopefully this year, we'll have even more protection going into place. And there's rumors that the government's going to take over in the U.S. the internet connectivity like they do in China and other places of the world and regulate it. Oh, that would be a terrible thing. That would be a terrible thing. Hopefully that won't happen. You don't want the government telling you which websites you can go to, which ones you can't go to, what you can do. But the problem is, and the unfortunate part of all this, is the government suffering from the lack of control, lack of regulation, because they're not making as much money. People have uncollectible income that's happening online. There's crime that exists online. There's so many problems online. If people just, stopped doing that and behaved themselves, the government wouldn't have a need to step in. But unfortunately, that's not most people. Or people, criminals on the internet. But yeah, e-commerce has created new problems with income tax, especially in the U.S. There's no transaction. How are you gonna, if you can't identify the transaction, how are you gonna charge taxes on it? Then you have issues with something crossing a border, other issues that come into place. So governments, countries regulate access to information on the web. China's probably the biggest regulator. Actually you can't go to YouTube, from what I heard. If you're in China, you can't get to YouTube. Well, I know this from ITU Cafe, the China ITU component. They can't go to YouTube. So you said, yeah, that's true. Facebook, no, you can't go to Facebook either? No. Seriously? Yeah. Twitter? Yeah, Facebook. None of that stuff? Yeah. Wow. So wouldn't that be bad, though, if that happened in the U.S.? It's a reality, though, and it might actually happen. But it's not going to be access to Twitter. It's going to be eBay or Craigslist, or, it's going to be like the commerce-related stuff. Because the U.S. I'm going to say that again, and people are going to yell at me for that. All right, so this lecture is completely biased. But I don't think the government's really concerned about our public safety. I think they're probably concerned more about their revenue. China government is concerned about public safety for the most part. Or, they don't want people to be looking at something that might not be acceptable. So, which what you get on YouTube, actually, if you haven't been to YouTube. Outside of my channel, there's a lot of garbage out there. So, Reporters Without Boundaries, Unethical Behavior. Actually, that's the other interesting thing that technology did to us. There's nothing that's private anymore. Things happen instantly. They show up all over the news. You're at a scene of a crime and someone videotapes it with their phone. And all of a sudden now it's, is it ethical? Is it unethical? Actually, it was kind of cruel. There was a guy who got into a motorcycle accident. Okay, so I'm a part-time law student, so I have law stories I'll tell you. But he apparently he was killed, and a bystander who was driving took it and filmed it, put it on the internet, and the family saw that before they found out about the accident. Long story short, the trauma in terms of having to see that before they actually knew what happened gave them psychological damage. So they were suing the person who put it up there because it was like, not only disrespect, it was very disrespectful to begin with, but it was completely, unethical in terms of what their opinion of the whole scenario was. And I'm not giving you all the details, but apparently it was a pretty gruesome accident, and it was a pretty gruesome video that was put up there. And it was showing him without a helmet on. It was showing, and it was making implications that, oh, this guy is just crazy, And it's like, no, it was totally wrong. It was like not really how things happened. Anyway, so the family sued this person and won, actually. And there have been other cases in which people, and this has happened in junior high or high schools, and we've all heard of cyberbullying, and we have all heard of these stories of the kids that just don't. You're giving them technology, and you're expecting them to act like adults. So there's a lot of teen suicides, there's a lot of damage, and now what's happening is the parents are suing. So, hey, my child committed suicide because you tormented that kid, and you did this to them. You took a picture of them in the bathroom or something, or you did some embarrassing pose or something. Well, long story short, they're winning, which is great. I think it's a big win because people need to stop doing that. So, anyway, long story short, a lot of controversy. So the government wants to step in and regulate that and say, hey, can you put a scene of an automobile accident online? It's not your accident. You don't own that. Better yet, they've already made attempts to ban cell phones at movie theaters and which they can't do, actually, or in restaurants because people don't know how to have a pleasant dinner without talking on the phone or disturbing everybody else around them. Or better yet, going to a concert these days and people hold up the phone. Excuse me, can you put your phone down so I can see what's in front of me? Because they're recording something. Anyway, long story short, government would love to regulate that a little bit more. It would keep the people in place, I think. So who owns web posted data? Well, that's a good question. The poster or the internet? And what role do companies have Microsoft as an example in dealing with the governments? And should the internet create its own laws? That's another posing question. None of these questions, by the way, have any answers to them. So kind of an very interesting time that we're living in right now. And in terms of guerrilla Wi-Fi, we tried to have citywide, metropolitan-wide, it was in the city of Mountain View, actually. Not up anymore. They made it for almost a month, I think. This is about a year ago. They tried to put in metropolitan-wide Wi-Fi system. Too expensive. No support, no contribution, no funding. Nobody contributed to it. And what were they expecting? I don't know. They took it down. But if you think about it, shouldn't the city, and this is the philosophy, shouldn't the city be providing you with Wi-Fi service? Couldn't they? It's like a utility these days. But they can't. So also to divide with the haves and the haves-not in the IT world. If you have which is actually kind of interesting, you get this with movie tickets, or not movie tickets, concert tickets are actually the biggest thing, or shows and things. You go online and you buy it, and you get the electronic ticket. It's free. You go to pick the ticket up at the box office, or to have it sent to you, it's $35, $30. You have to pay, actually, to have a ticket printed out, which is ridiculous, or to have something sent to you. So if you don't have the technology, it's costing you more to go. Or it's making it so you can't buy the ticket because it's going to sell out within the first hour as tickets go for sale. So if you don't have technology, you're not online, you're not shopping for it, you're not waiting. Or if you don't have those programs that actually go hit something constantly to go in to buy it, you're not getting the ticket. Which is actually kind of interesting because there's programs now that you can use to get into Macworld or get into the high volume purchases within the first 5 minutes. The thing's sold out. So you buy the programs and you run the programs and it gets you the ticket, gets you in. So long story short, haves and the have-nots. Also the laptop scennario, which is actually kind of interesting because if you're not going to give laptops to children but you're going to put all their books online, which is what California schools are doing now, they're giving the children PDFs of books instead of the printed book. And I'm thinking, well, that's good, but what if the kid doesn't have a laptop or is sharing a laptop? Then they're going to be sharing the book, or what's going to go on with that one? And why don't you just give the kid a laptop too? So, but instead they gave them iPads. Actually, there's a couple of schools that rent iPads out. Actually, the entire school term, and they put all the books on the iPads. Not a bad idea, actually. Although I'll be the first one to tell you, if you've ever tried reading from an iPad more than a couple of hours at a time, my eyes get all red and irritated from it, and I can't handle that. Never happened with a printed book though. But yeah, now the reading, even if it's a retina screen, is not going to be that good for your eyes. Let's see, providing a Wi-Fi service, $50 minis, mini routers, piggyback routers, all sorts of different things come into place. So business and career outlet, lots of jobs in this area, lots of things with global skills, immersing yourself in a culture, figuring out how you're going to take advantage of the cultural background you have already, as well as, in fact, that's what a lot of international students do, actually. You have great opportunities for tons of different jobs, actually, in different careers that most of the locals don't have access to, which is actually kind of interesting. Because you're coming in with a slightly different skill set. And unfortunately, another non-politically correct thing I'll say is they can pay you less. Which is the reality. Come on, they're going to pay you less. But they'd rather hire you than hire somebody else, so for certain things. So, anyway, long story short, that was the end of this lecture with all of the non-politically correct things mentioned. Side effect, those are bonuses, the non-politically correct. So let's talk about homework assignment number 1. And then as I was reminded by somebody, I can't remember who it was, anyway, before the class started, so the due date for everything is December 16th. It's the end of the class. But you don't want to wait until the very last week of class to start working on stuff. Instead, if you work on the pace that I'm going to give you, starting today, you'll have something to work on, and then you finish it, you submit it, finish it, submit it. So the first thing to work on is the first assignment. And the first assignment, and this is listed actually at the bhacker.com website, and it is under assignments. So we have 3 assignments, and I believe 4 case studies in here. So the next one in here is, we're not going to do the case studies yet, but here we have the 4 case studies, 3 assignments. So assignment number 1 is a writing assignment. You're going to choose an article. So what I want you to do is get some exposure to engineering management, actually. So you're going to select a software engineering and information systems, information technology, or an engineering management kind of article used for a business or at a business kind of scenario. So it's a topic related to something at a business in the area of engineering management. It could be a system, could be a process, could be the sky's the limit, actually. So an article related to a topic. So business related, not consumer related. So the article can be found in any formats. It can be online or in print or magazine, newspaper, blog, book chapter, video, audio, podcast, transcripts, YouTube video, anything you want. It doesn't have to be an article. And but should be from a credible source. So don't take some high school kid's video and use that as your article. And reasonable length. So about 10-minute presentation at minimum, not like a 2-second kind of thing or 1 minute kind of thing, like a 10-minute or so, or an article. So tell me what it is. So that's step number 1. You're going to provide a full citation of the article. So if it's an article, give me the APA style format of the reference. Author's last name, comma, first name, year publication. And go online, APA, search APA, reference citation. I'm going to use the APA for this class for everything, actually. That's pretty standard. If you're not familiar with the APA, MLA, or Little Brown Book, or one of the other ones, go ahead and use that. I don't really care. But I want like a real citation for it, if possible. If it's a video, a blog, there are ways of actually creating a citation for that in the APA. So you can actually do a website, a blog, using APA. Google it. so you'll figure it out. So you're going to write, here's the writing part of it, you're going to write a brief abstract of the article. Tell me what the article is about, or the video, or what it is on, how it relates to engineering management. So approximately 250 words. You can make it longer. No shorter though. 250 words is pretty short. It's like half a page. Not too much. Including a description of the topic, the main point, supporting evidence and conclusions, and with your own reaction to the article in terms of credibility, usefulness, applicability, and implications. So if I found something on, let's say, a technology, because you can pick a technology if you wanted to, and it was barcoding or scanning or, I don't know, infrared or, I don't know, a better something, then I could also give my, at the end say, well, I think this might be useful, may not be useful, might be appropriate for this industry, but not for that industry. I can see this being used in this context for so many years, and then it's going to eventually be replaced or something. So give your own opinion, actually, and write the thing in your own words. Do not cut and paste the abstract of the article or anything that you find underneath a video or something like that. Write it in your own words. It's not that hard. It's a pretty easy assignment. Very easy assignment. It's like a scavenger hunt. And what it will hopefully do is it's not really the reporting of the article, it's the searching on the topic that's more important. You'll spend more time searching on the topic and trying to find something than you will actually writing the article. And the concept is to get you some exposure to what is engineering management. And it's more like how it's hard to find. In fact, if you just search engineering management article, nothing's going to come up. Nothing is going to come up on this. So you'll have to pinpoint it. What am I talking about? Software engineering management, or computer engineering management or something. Long story short, it's one of the most misunderstood, broadest fields out there. There's no category for this, which is what you're going to discover. In the meantime, you'll find out what are the other hybrids, what fits into this category, and then you'll have to pick something out of this category and report on it. When you're all done with it, it goes in a Microsoft Word file, hopefully, or a text file, or whatever word processor you use, and then you upload it into the EMS. When's the due date? December 16th. So you want to wait till December 16th? Unless you want to wait till the very last day and do all of this work the last week of class, that's fine. Probably don't want to. Good timing to start working on this one. Maybe another week or so, turn it in. How's that? Maybe, next week, turn it in. And then because next week I'll be talking about assignment number 2, or actually probably case study number 1 next week. Case studies are a little bit more labor intensive. So in your spare time, work on this one. Unless we have any questions, comments, or concerns, I'll see you next week. Is this class long enough for you? Do you want it to be longer? Shorter? Longer? It's a good length, isn't it? Good length. All right, let's have lunch.